Okay, we're live.
Welcome everyone. Good Medicine Way. That means it's another Monday night here in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I want to welcome everybody. We've got a few people on, guests, and even somebody coming from Louisiana tonight. So that's pretty cool. And we don't really have, or Alabama. Sorry. So, got a little technical thing going on here, so we'll get going. Yeah, I just want to make everybody welcome. We're here in the land of the Tiwa people, the Pueblo people of this Rio Grande Valley. They stretch up and down the Rio Grande. Here's 19 pueblos. Here also in Albuquerque city limits, we have a large population of Native American people. A couple of years ago, over 127 different tribes. And this past weekend, there were over 700 tribes here in Albuquerque. We had the Gathering of Nations powwow, and amazing. And we had a guest come down from, everybody knows her, Helen Wright. She came down from South Bend, Indiana, to the Gathering of Nations. We got to visit some. He's decked out here. Looks like she bought some things from the powwow. She's wearing some jewelry. I want to let you know about that. The Navajo Nation and 2 Apache tribes are in this area as well. So with that, I want to turn it over to Helen. Helen, will you be all set now? The microphone is already hot.
Oops.
You can read our opening prayer.
Let me get the camera switched.
Okay, we're switching the camera.
And then I'll go ahead and put the words up for the prayer as well. All right, take it away.
Okay. This is a prayer from the Lakota people. Creator, great mystery, teach me how to trust my heart, my mind, my intuition, my inner knowing, the senses of my body, the blessings of my spirit. Teach me to trust these things so that I may enter my sacred space and love beyond my fear, and walk in harmonious balance with the passing of each glorious sun.
Oh, thank you very much. All right, our opening song, Brian's going to lead that, titled They Come Dancing. So give him a minute to cue up a thing here. Got a couple different guitars here tonight, so...
Yeah, I had access to the car tonight. So.
Oh, yeah, there you go. All right. Yeah, you can't really... I like to see him carry that guitar in the back of that motorcycle. Yeah.
So I'll do I'll sing the first vocal line, and then we'll kind of get a rhythm going with everybody, and then we'll go into the song.
Yeah, just let you know, when you're here in person here, everybody can pick out of a basket we have here and get a rattle and right along with the music. And there is an extra drum back there if you guys ever want to get the drum. You doing it?
Okay. Yahweh, 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 Yahweh. Where do you go? Yeah. Yahweh, 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 Yahweh. Yahweh, Yahweh, Yahweh. Yahweh, 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 Yahweh. Yahweh, Yahweh, Yahweh. I see you dancing in a good and sacred way. I feel you dancing, joy shining from your face. I see you dancing in honor and with thanks. I watch you dancing, full of beauty and of grace. From four directions they come dancing. The earth replies under their feet. From every nation they come dancing, praising Creator with the beat. Hey, ya, ya, way, ya, hey, ya, hey, yo, way. Yo, way, ya, hey, ya, yo, way. Yahweh, 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 Yahweh. The drums calling in a good and sacred way. Dance for the people, young and old, small and great. Dance for Creator, make every step a prayer. Love for Him and one another, love and never hate. From four directions they come dancing. The earth replies under their feet. From every nation they come dancing, praising Creator with the beat. Hey, ya, ya, way, ya, hey, ya, hey, yo, way. Yo, way, ya, hey, ya, yo, way. Yahweh, 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 Yahweh. The circle is a rainbow, and all its colors are shining in the sun. Sorrow is turned into dancing, and all our tears to the sound of the drum. Yahweh, Yahweh, Yahweh. Yahweh, Yahweh, Yahweh. Yahweh, Yahweh, Yahweh. From far directions they come dancing. The earth replies under their feet. From every nation they come dancing, praising Creator with the beat. Hey, ya, Yahweh, 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 Yahweh. Yahweh, 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 Yahweh. 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 Yahweh, 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 Yahweh.
CD. Yeah, very good, everybody. Thanks for sharing. That's a good song. All right, Creation Insight tonight. We're going to have Heavenly Scott going to be giving us a Creation Insight. Evan?
I was thinking about the loon because they have these patches for the ice resistance movement where the people that are working have this patch that kind of looks like if a blue heron and a loon had a baby. And so it made me chuckle because that's what I think about when I think of the patch. And the loon is really cool because it kind of like works with the earth and its environment to teach us about the power of our own subconscious. And so like the loon reminds me of mist on the water, like smoke on the water almost. Like when you go to greet the waters or be with the waters, especially like early in the morning. There's that mist over the water, and it's like a blessing rising from the water because it's the sun and the water working together. And the loon is usually there, and they have beautiful red eyes. And it reminds me of like the fire of life in that moment of like the mist on the water. But it's also like a reminder of like the power of our minds and how there are things we push down, like there are things in the bottom of the water that clean it, but there are things that rise up, and they rise up at their own time too, you know? And I think that's a beautiful thing. Like, and our subconscious mind has that power too. Like there are things we push down deep, and then there are times that they come to the surface. And it's a way of cleansing, but it's not really our power, it's God's power. And I think that's really beautiful. And so I just wanted to share about the loon for Creation Insights. And thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you, Heaven. Very nice. I'll have to check that out. Look at that image there and see if I see that. Wow. Thank you very much. All right, we're getting ready to do our Lord's Prayer from the First Nations version. I think everybody knows why we do that, because you can either do this one or you can do the one that was written in 1611, King James English, that no one speaks anymore. So that's the one everybody memorizes. So now we are working on memorizing this one. So join us.
All right. Creator sets free, shows us how to pray. O great Spirit, our Father from above, we honor your name as sacred and holy. Bring your good road to us, where the beauty of your ways in the spirit world above is reflected in the earth below. Provide for us day by day the elk, the buffalo, the salmon, the corn, the squash, and the wild rice. All the things we need for each day. Release us from the things we have done wrong. In the same way, we release others who have done wrong to us. Guide us away from the things that tempt us to stray from your good road, and set us free from the evil one and his worthless ways. Ahu, may it be so.
Right. Very, very good. I think everybody's getting it, memorizing it little by little here. A lot of us here, we learned it by sign language here a couple of years ago, and now a lot of us still use those hand motions, and we do it too. So now we're going to go on to our smoke signals and talk about a couple things. We have a symposium coming up here that Good Medicine Way is going to be a part of. And if you go onto our site, you should be seeing this type of announcement coming up: Indigenous justice and Christian spirituality. We got a national speaker coming up, and she has been our speaker here in the past year, Sarah Augustine. She's going to be talking about, or she is the member of the Doctrine of Discovery, Dismantling the Doctrine of Discovery Coalition, an executive director. And myself, I'll be a speaker in this as well as Reverend Carol Rose going to be a speaker as well in this. And it's focusing on some Native American issues, justice for us, and freedom to Christianity in a way that reflects our Native American identity. So, and right now, looks like we're going to be live streaming it. We haven't got the official word from that yet, but we're hoping to live stream that. So keep that in mind. And there, if you look on our website and our Facebook, you'll see that announcement. The other thing is we have our book study, and our guest speaker, you can all see him there, is Larry Gent. He's from West Virginia. He's going to be sharing with us as well, because the chapter we're reading, it's titled Singing Songs of Lament Along the Trail of Tears. And a while back here, Larry did a couple of different programs where he talked about the songs that were sung on the Trail of Tears. they were sung to the tunes of regular hymns, but the wording of the songs were from Native American language that reflected the trials and battles that they were going through at the time. So he's going to be sharing with us tomorrow night, as a guest speaker with us here. So if you want to come in and join us, you can go to the Facebook page and join the book study and listen in if you'd like. And we're going to be going through the last half of chapter 5 on that. So our next week's speaker is going to be a good friend of mine. I've been out here some 25 years now, and Mike Hendricks is doing ministry in this area for that long as well. But he goes down to Mexico. He works cross-culturally in Mexico. He's going to be sharing some of his experience there, working cross-culturally, in different languages. He speaks different other Spanish languages very well. He'll be sharing with us his experience and maybe motivate some other people to get excited about doing mission work, and maybe even connect with him if you would like, and make a trip with him someday. I know he has asked me, but I'm always going somewhere else too, so keep that in mind. Let's see, another thing, the symposium is going to be coming up. Also just wanted to reflect on this past weekend, we had the Gathering of Nations powwow, and talking about the number of people that came to town, but there was over 700 tribes that were represented at the Gathering of Nations powwow. And if you've never seen it or attended it, powwows usually have a good number of people that'll dance around the circle, but I think there was probably over 1,500. There had to be 1,500 dancers at one time, but not because not all of them made it onto the floor, because the floor was too small to hold everybody. So they were kind of dancing in the aisles, all the ones that couldn't make it to the floor. It was just amazing. They sent off the Gathering of Nations powwow and with a lot of tears, sadness, respect, protocols. One thing that they had to do is that would be the last Miss Indian World that they. So, and she was Prairie Band Potawatomi and a friend of my daughter, Sean Deans. And so she kind of turned over her crown and her sash, and she traveled, I forget how many 100,000 miles this past year as the representative of Miss Indian World. So ended that, and it was a very good time. So busy. I think it was extra busy this year because of the last dance, and it was titled Gathering of Nations Last Dance. And we weren't able to get a t-shirt, but they said no problem, just go with the QR code and you go online and you can buy the t-shirt again. So that was an amazing time, and Laura and I got to go to that. And also we met up with Ellen, who also came. She ventured out on her own here, and she made it all the way down here, flew down. But you did get a vehicle that was way too big for you at first, yes? She got herself a big old SUV, and yeah, she just could not do that, so she traded it in and got herself a little car. Yeah, so she made it around here. So she's in person tonight, so I wanted to announce that. Ellen Wright from South Bend, Indiana, made it here. So everybody out there, you're getting all envious because you'll make it down here. The last announcement, I always say that, but there's always another one that sneaks up on me here. But I want to let everybody know, because we have been talking about this for a little while, is how that we could have maybe some kind of retreat for Good Medicine Week. But I want to invite you to join me, because I have been invited to go to the Wachoni family camp that we'll be having at the end of July. And if you'd like to do that, I'll be there, and we can get together, and everybody that sees each other on virtually, you can see us together there in Oregon. So check that out. So their registration is open. They have various levels of accommodations to stay there. So one price pays for your all the activities, the powwow and all the speakers, and all the singing and dancing, and the room and the food. And it's an amazing time. And once you go one time, you'll get infected and you'll want to go every year. It's So, yeah, it's kind of like with the Nate Symposium as well. When you go there, you just like, man, I got to be around these people. They just speak my language, and I just feel so comfortable and feel so loved by being there. And that's what the Wachoni Family Camp is. And I'm going, especially as a guest. I ran the Wachoni Family Camp 17 years. I worked with Richard Twist for many of those years, and then when he passed, I took over his directorship and the Wachoni Family Camp and the rest of his organization for 7 years. And it was probably the busiest time of my life ever. If you've ever traveled a lot, I traveled twice a month for 7 years. It's just way too much. I missed a lot of my family life and wouldn't curse anybody with that kind of experience again. But ministry was done, and today we are now Good Medicine Way. Thankful for that. So with that, I want to remind everybody that we do have a matching grant for our offering time here. We call the giveaway. We have a blanket in front of us here on the floor, and we also have a QR code blanket that Brian's going to put up, and I'll turn it over to him, and he can share you how to give.
Yeah, so we're going to put a QR code blanket up on the screen, so our digital blanket. There's a couple QR codes on it. One is PayPal specific if you happen to need that. The other one that has the Good Medicine Way logo on it just goes directly to us. So if you don't need the PayPal one specifically, use the other one because then we don't have to pay any PayPal fees on that one. So all the money you give comes directly to us. If you prefer not to give online, our mailing address will also be on the screen, so you can send a good old-fashioned check or money order to that. Or if you have non-monetary things you'd like to share with us, those can also go to that address. And everything I'm saying is also pinned to the top of our Facebook page, so you can get the information there as well. If you would like to contact us for any reason, or you want to try to get more involved with Good Medicine Way and not sure how to make that happen, just send us an email at gmw4abq@gmail.com. That's the letters GMW for Good Medicine Way, the number 4, and then the letters ABQ for Albuquerque. So gmw4abq@gmail.com. Yeah, let's start a conversation. We love to build relationships and build community and create opportunities for people to do things. So yeah, we would welcome the chance to get to know you a little better. And without any further ado, I'll get the blanket up. And then I'm going to be doing a song that was written a few years ago by the band Midnight Oil, and they're from Australia. So they wrote it about the Aboriginal struggles there. And so we kind of reworked it a little bit to make it more about the struggles of Indigenous folks on Turtle Island. So we'll see how it goes. If I can find all my buttons to push. First to deserve an explanation. First nation, last to receive an invitation. First nation, when we gonna start the conversation? When we gonna start the celebration? Church that's culture an abomination. When we gonna call it the stolen generation? Out loud, we're waiting, still waiting. Nation within a nation, still waiting. Strong vision, tradition, no ticket and no admission. No government indecision, no token recognition. First Nation, so ancient. Let's sit down and talk about appropriation. Let's sit down and talk about compensation. Let's sit down and talk about reconciliation. Out loud, we're waiting, still waiting. Nation within a nation, still waiting. Nation within a nation. Nation within a nation. Nation within a nation. Nation within a nation.
Pretty good. Yeah, deep. A lot in that song. Thank you, Brian. We're going to go into our scripture reading, and in-house here, we're going to have Twyla. Going to be sharing that from Matthew 25, 31 through 46.
When the true human being comes in all of his power and shining greatness, along with all of his spirit messengers, he will sit down at his seat of honor. All nations will be gathered and come before him. He will choose between them like a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. He will put the sheep on his right side and the goats on his left. Then the chief will say to the sheep on his right, "The blessing of my Father rests upon you. Come into the Lord of Creator's good road that has been prepared for you from the beginning of the world. For I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was hungry, and you fed me. I was a stranger, and you gave me lodging. When I needed clothes, you gave me something to wear. When I was sick, you took care of me. And when I was in prison, you visited me." "When did we do all these things for you?" the good-hearted ones asked. "I speak from my heart," he answered them. "Whatever you did for the least important of my fellow human beings who needed help, you did for me." Then the chief will say to the goats on his left, "Go away from me, you who have bad hearts, into the fire that burns everything up, made for the evil trickster snake and his messengers. For when I was hungry, you gave me nothing to eat. When I was thirsty, you gave me no drink. When I was a stranger, you turned me away. When I needed clothes, you gave me nothing to wear. And when I was sick and in prison, you failed to visit me. Honored one, they questioned, when was it that we saw you like this and did nothing? I speak from my heart, he answered back. When you did not help the ones who needed it most, you failed to help me. Then the goats will go away into the punishment of the world to come that never fades away, and the sheep will enter the life of the world to come that never fades away, full of beauty and harmony.
Thank you, Twyla. I'm going to go into our stillness time now, and after that, I'll introduce our speaker. All right, our speaker, Pastor Vickie, she's coming to us from Minnesota. And her and I, we got to get to know each other a little bit when we were both at a class where it's called the Native American Course of Study. And it's in Alaska. Beautiful time, such a beautiful sight from the lake that we were there. And we got to know each other there, both taking different classes at the time. And so I want to introduce to you Pastor Vickie, and for this time.
Thank you, Casey. I'm going to try to share the screen now. We'll see what happens. Oh no, we're going into system settings. We'll see what happens. Brian, I might have to email this to you, but hopefully I don't. Okay. Let me try this. Can you see this presentation or can you see me?
We still see you at this point.
Okay. It has been a long time since I have done this. Let's see here. Let me
Do you want some help, Vickie?
let me try one other thing. Then I'll take you up on it in just a second. Oh, maybe this will do it. Okay. Are you-
Yeah, we see it. We see the whole,
Page.
like the whole PowerPoint.
Yeah, put it on.
There we go. There we go.
Got it. Thank you. It's been a while since I've done this, so thank you for your patience. So first of all, I'm really honored that Casey asked me to speak tonight. And when he reached out, it was maybe in February. And I thought, my God, I have no idea what on earth I would say to this group. But I'm in the southern part of the land of Turtle Island that we now call Minnesota. And we were living through the Operation Metro Surge because really Operation Metro Surge impacted all of Minnesota. And the city that I live in is a very diverse city with over 50 languages spoken. So we did have an ICE presence here in Austin as well. And so I thought, well, maybe I could do a presentation to this group on the Indigenous influences in the resistance efforts on Operation Metro Surge, because that's what we were living through. And he said yes, which was good. So I'm humbled to be here. I'm just going to walk you through the images on the screen here. And the upper left is an image of some Indigenous clergy at a protest in Minneapolis, St. Paul area. In the upper right is a Indigenous chef named Sean Sherman. He's Oglala Lakota Sioux. He's a James Beard award-winning chef in Minneapolis, and he was very active in the resistance and trying to minimize the impacts of Operation Metro Surge here in Minneapolis, or here in Minnesota. The lower left image is an image of Renee Good's car, and Renee is one of the people that was murdered by ICE agents. It so happened that her vehicle, after she was shot, her foot hit the accelerator, and so she ended up driving into a tree or a pole, and that pole actually is in the front yard of the granddaughter of a congregation member who goes to our church. So we have and I know her. And so we have a personal connection there, which is kind of weird. And then in the lower right is just this beautiful image of protest. My guess would be from the late 60s, early 70s, probably associated with AIM. So the image that I chose, or this is the scripture that I chose. Thank you for reading that. Matthew 25, it's sometimes called the parable of the sheep and the goats. And this is a very important scripture to me because it talks about, what it is that I think that we are to be doing as people who follow Jesus, or as we would say in Indigenous circles, creator sets free. And this passage was read at my grandfather's funeral and was read at my father's funeral, and will also be read at my funeral. And so it's a very important passage to me, but it is also really very suitable to the efforts that were taken during Operation Metro Surge resistance. So feeding people, giving them clothes, giving them shelter, taking care of people, and even attempting to visit people in prison. Wanted to tell you a little bit about this geographic location that I am in right now that has the name Minnesota. I think the Anishinaabe name for it is Minnesota Makosi. I do not know Anishinaabe, so excuse me for incorrect pronunciation. So our state is the home of 11 tribal nations, 7 Anishinaabe reservations, 4 Dakota communities, and then we also have a presence of the Minnesota Chippewa tribe that is comprised of 6 Ojibwe bands. And there's a nice map on the right-hand side of your screen that shows the varying locations of the Indigenous presence in the state of Minnesota. So in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area, which we call the Twin Cities, there are over 50,000 Indigenous persons, which makes it among the largest urban Indigenous population in the United States. So it would make sense then that Minneapolis is the home of the birth of the American Indian Movement, or AIM, that we'll talk about in a little bit. And then the most common Indigenous language spoken here is Anishinaabe. And then I wanted to make a intentional note about the sources that I used in this presentation. I tried to use somewhat mainstream sources. I tried to avoid sources that leaned to one side or the other in terms of polarization. And am trying to be intentional about including Indigenous language where possible. So this is a little bit of information about Operation Metro Surge, which started in December. So the stated objective, according to the Trump administration, was that ICE would arrest immigrants with violent criminal records in Minnesota. And then there was going to be a secondary focus targeting the Somali community because there was a significant amount of fraud that occurred during COVID with the Feeding Our Future food program. And so that was the stated objective, was that they would arrest violent criminals in Minnesota and that they would target fraud and that they would be targeting the Somali community. So actual results, and there's some of these numbers are a little low because we don't have real-time reporting here with the federal government. We know that 2 United States citizens have been killed by ICE agents in Minneapolis. We know that additional persons have certainly died in ICE custody in this year, and not all of those numbers are available. Through March 10th, 3,800 people had been arrested by federal immigration agents. 2/3 of the persons arrested in Minnesota did not have a criminal record or did not have pending charges. So the arresting immigrants with violent criminal records is something that obviously did not happen. 70 plus people of the 3,800 people that were arrested were minors, were children that were less than 18 years old. And there's some pictures on the screen there of 3 young persons who were arrested. To date, there's only 5 arrests that took place during Operation Metro Surge that were related to fraud in any way whatsoever. The estimated short-term financial impacts of this, and this is estimated short-term, $600 million in lost revenue and $240 million in lost wages in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area during that operation. And that's just Minneapolis-St. Paul. That's not across the state of Minnesota. And even 2 hours away where I live, we have felt it here. We have seen it in church attendance. We've seen it in giving. Estimated short-term, that should say humanitarian impacts would be second harvest just in the metro area, Minneapolis-St. Paul, estimated that they needed to prepare 50,000 food boxes to deliver to people who were afraid to leave their homes. On the education front, 53% of K through 12 parents surveyed in Minneapolis said they kept their children home from school at some point during the operation. And that number for St. Paul, which is its sister city, is 45%. So you have an important gap in children going to school, which is going to lead to, lower success education rates, lower graduation rates, et cetera. And then medical, 29% of Minneapolis residents said they missed medical appointments. And then the St. Paul number for that was 20%. So short-term, very significant impacts. We don't obviously know the long-term impacts yet. So this slide is really about what did Minnesota in general do? And then the next slide, I'm going to start getting into how our Indigenous community showed up and how what was learned probably during the AIM years helped Minnesota prepare for events like this. So Minnesota, as a whole, here's some just basic stats for what Minnesota did. Very quickly, underground communication networks developed with real-time alerts on ICE presence across 77 of Minnesota's 87 counties. Minnesota is a very big state, so it's a lot of territory to cover, but very quickly people organized and figured out a process to report the presence of ice across the state of Minnesota. Also, very quickly, 30,000 people were mobilized and trained to become constitutional observers who document ICE's presence across Minnesota. Those folks were very important because they filmed, they videotaped, they helped protect people's rights. The Whipple building that we'll talk about in a little bit, ICE headquarters, was surveilled. And so what some of the people would do is they would track vehicles leaving the Whipple building. They would track their license plates and they would broadcast that information out to the networks. And so then people would know if ICE was headed their way. So that was some of the communication efforts that took place. And then in terms of mutual aid, across the state of Minnesota, there were food relief programs that took place for families that were too afraid to leave home. Certainly here in Austin, there were groups that were delivering food and there's probably still some need for that. There were rideshare and work programs for safety. I know I work for the United Methodist Church in the state of Minnesota, and all of our clergy of color were instructed not to drive anywhere alone at all for about 3 months. So there was a very significant efforts taken to get people where they needed to go. Another thing that the general public did is there were efforts made to just ask people to go support immigrant businesses. And so if we asked you to go to Tienda Guerrero, you would buy, whatever kind of food that you might not normally eat, and then you would take it to the Salvation Army food shelf. And you were doing that because you were trying to keep the Tienda in business, but also you were trying to help the Salvation Army feed the people that needed help because they weren't able to get to the store or they weren't going to work because they were afraid of being arrested. And then many businesses, churches, etc., kind of pivoted and transitioned and became community spaces that would offer warmth and coffee or supplies. And that could be anything from a gathering place or just making photocopies of the little red cards that were handed out to people in multiple languages to let them know what their rights were. So now we're going to get a little bit more into what was the Indigenous response in Minnesota. And Minnesota does have an established Indigenous population that is very well organized as well. So as soon as they saw that immigrants were being detained without due process, they immediately began to set up pop-up events for individuals to get their tribal IDs. And folks were trained and given information on know their rights. They were told to carry your tribal ID card with you everywhere you went in case you were stopped. I don't have a total of the number of Indigenous persons in Minnesota that were arrested and detained and sent to Bishop Whipple building where ICE held people, but there were many, many people of Indigenous heritage that were detained during this time. They also, some of the Indigenous groups in Minneapolis also did safety patrols, which is something that they also did during George Floyd, during that unrest in the Twin Cities in 2000. And that's something that dates back to the AIM heritage, the AIM heritage, and restaurants and businesses donated food, supplies, and again became community hubs. So again, a concerted, concentrated effort. Everybody played different roles, and there's just a few pictures here of the picture in the top right is a tribal ID registration pop-up center, and then down below is Rachel Diane Thunder, who's Big Stone Cree, and she's right outside a coffee shop that was one of the central points of resistance, Indigenous resistance in Minneapolis. Um, this was obviously a very, very significant event, Operation Metro Surge, and it received global coverage. So this is from The Guardian, which comes from Great Britain. And they had this story about Operation Metro Surge in Indigenous resistance. I don't remember. Yeah, in the middle of February, February 15th. And so I saved it. Uh, and the quote that really spoke to me from here is history repeats itself. And we as Indigenous people are trying to make sure that we are as prepared as we can be. And then this is another quote from a more local Indigenous newspaper that basically says where there's an Indigenous leader that's saying, we have seen this before. And the quote is great. What we're really seeing is a continuation of tactics that us as Native people are very accustomed to. But what is happening now that is different is that American citizens are waking up to the reality of what it means to be existing under an authoritarian regime. We as natives know and already understand because we have been doing that for generations. And what I would say that as I was talking with my Caucasian friends who would say to me, oh my God, Vickie, what are we going to do? How did we get here? This is not us. And I would say to them, yeah, actually it is us because we have been doing this with Indigenous populations for 400 years. And I said, they are still alive and they have made it, and so will we. And we have made it. And it is my sincere hope that as we are rebuilding our country and our state, but our country from the current system that's governing us, that we, because of what we have had to endure, will be building something better. If we had anyone who was, if we have anyone who is Dakota on, I would invite you to interrupt me here. The area where the Fort Snelling building is that houses ICE and the ICE detention center is a central point in Dakota's people's creation stories. It is the confluence of the Minnesota and Mississippi rivers. And so for them, it's a very, very sacred place. And when colonials came in and took over this land, they built Fort Snelling there. And in 1863, they imprisoned 1,600 Dakota there. And so the generational trauma there is not something about which I'm qualified to speak. But it's important for me as we're having this dialogue to call out how significant it was that people were being detained in Fort Snelling, in this place that is supposed to be sacred for Dakota people. And then in 2026, this was also in February. The All Nations Church, there's a quote there from Kelly Sherman Conroy, who's Oglala Lakota, said, there was a time in this country when everything about Native people was illegal. Our languages were illegal. Our prayers were illegal. Our gatherings were illegal. Our children were punished and were punished for remembering who they were. Their goal was erasure, but we survived. So it is just deeply moving that a large gathering of Indigenous persons would go back onto this sacred territory that had been taken away from them, that had imprisoned 1,600 Lakota. And there's an image here in the lower right of the 4,000 prayer ties that they tied on the fence there that symbolized people that were in detention. And then here's a quote from a couple of Indigenous pastors in Minneapolis about how some of their communities provided help. They provided wellness and mental health support in addition to food and supplies. The All Nations Indian Church has significant roots within the AIM movement in Minneapolis. And I particularly liked the quote by the priest Robert Two Bowls, who's Oglala Lakota Oyete. He said, "This shows to me that community does exist." And I think when we have these moments in our history where the worst things are happening, it is a time when humanity can come together and we can show people our very best. And that is what we did in Minnesota in December, January, March. And there's still some of those efforts are going on today and will be going on for a while, but it's not at kind of the critical pace where we're looking at the Ice Out website, multiple times a day to see what's going on, and where we're texting people in signal chats to see what's going on. We're through the most critical crisis part, and now it's more trying to get people back on their feet, trying to rebuild community, trying to provide mental health support, et cetera, et cetera. I want to talk about the AIM history in Minneapolis just a little bit. And I do this with the huge caveat that I am not a historian. I was born in 1970 in southern Minnesota, so I cannot speak to the history of AIM. I do certainly remember learning about AIM on the news when I was growing up, but I am not a historian. AIM did leave some, AIM does have, there's some violence associated with AIM's legacy, but they played a very, very important role in advancing the cause for Indigenous rights in the United States. AIM originated in Minneapolis in 1968 because they wanted to combat police abuse in the city of Minneapolis, and then their reach eventually grew. I think to me, as we are gathering here tonight, in the spirit of Indigenous contextual worship, one of the most important things that they did in terms of freedom of Indigenous religious practices is they did something called the Longest Walk in 1978. And one of the things that helped accomplish was to force President Jimmy Carter to sign a bill that allowed Indigenous persons to lift the ban on, traditional Native American spiritual practices, which would be sage or tobacco or drumming or whatever. And I was very young at that point in time. I was 8 years old when that happened. But I do remember even my father, who I'm a tiny bit Indigenous, and that comes from my dad's side of the family. I do remember my dad talking about that and how that was very important, that Indigenous people should be able to practice how they wished. And so I think if those of us who are younger, if AIM had not been formed and did not have the impact it did in the 1970s, we would probably not be here today practicing our spirituality in this fashion. And then one of the things that I saw and heard as I was consuming media during Operation Metro Surge, and those of us in Minnesota during Operation Metro Surge certainly were on our devices a lot. It was the Signal chat, it was Facebook, it was Where's Ice Now, it was checking the Ice Out website. And one of the things that we often heard is, why is this happening in Minneapolis? Like, why is Minneapolis so remarkable? Because Chicago, they hit Chicago first. Um, and we in Minneapolis were more successful in combating um, Operation Metro Surge. Um, and there are multiple reasons. I think one of the reasons that we were successful is because we were the birthplace of the American Indigenous movement. And so here's a couple of quotes. Minneapolis isn't like the rest of the world. Mike Forcia, Bad River Band of Chippewa. We take this stuff seriously and we're not going to put up with violence and degradation from the authorities. And so he was asked, is that because of the Indigenous presence in the Twin Cities? And he said, yes, I would like to think so because we are on the front line always. And then Chase Iron Eyes, who's Oglala Lakota, who is the lower right image, who is an attorney, said, there is some sacred reason why fascism and those who would seek to do violence against peaceful American families are finding that they have met their match in Minneapolis because it's where the American Indian movement began. It's because there are Native people here. We know what it is like to be free. We know freedom in a different sense of that world. And all of America is welcome to know the freedom that we know. And this is the closing slide here. And I close this slide, close this presentation with an excerpt of that focus scripture. This image is from a prayer vigil that is taking place in front of the Bishop Whipple building on this sacred Dakota land right outside Fort Snelling. And they're doing a prayer vigil to protest ICE actions and deportation, and then also to honor the sacred land. And what I would encourage you to keep in mind when you're looking at these pictures of protests and people walking around and pictures of people in those huts or the teepees and sitting outside around the fire is this is January, February in Minnesota. It is not warm. It's cold. It's, in some cases 20 below wind chill. But people were still out and for hours and hours at a time. People understood what they were facing and they took this really seriously. And so I think that's all that I have. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and if there are questions, I would certainly welcome them. I think as I've thought about this, what we saw, those of us in Minnesota who were engaged in the relief efforts, was we saw that we were all called into honor each other because we were all created by the same creator, right? And that's a very colloquial, or that's a very that's a belief that many of us share. That's a very important core belief for Indigenous communities. And so I hope that was of interest to you. I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions, I might be able to answer some. I am by no means an expert on this. It's something that we just lived through. And I just thought that as we were walking through this, as I was guiding my faith congregation through this, and we were trying to figure out how can we help people, what can we do, and as I had people come to me and say, "Gosh, I don't think we're going to make it," right? I just said, we have so much white privilege, my friends. there's just, you're not going to get me to agree with you that we're not going to make it.
Mhm.
Um, and I drew a lot of strength from what I had learned from Indigenous communities, what I had learned in the Native American course of study, which is how I met Casey. And so this this presentation is it's an honor to you. It's an honor to your resilience and your strength and your what you and your ancestors have modeled for 400 years on Turtle Island.
Thank you, Vicki. We're going to go into a reflection time with a flute song, and then right after that, Brian will moderate discussion time.
Okay.
I thoroughly enjoyed that talk you gave us and was very moved. Are you still experiencing the presence of ice where you guys are at? Because we in New Mexico have ice here, I understand, but I haven't experienced seeing any of them where I live. The part of Albuquerque I live in, I'm not seeing that. And I just know that when it began to happen at the very beginning, I was just so heavy spirited for weeks and weeks and weeks. I could not get over how the people were being treated. And I just wonder if you're still experiencing that, and do you see the communities beginning to deal with it more openly?
So ice is always a presence. There's always an ice presence. During the height of the metro surge, I think there were almost 4,000 ICE agents. So it was not uncommon. I'm my church is the church that I'm responsible for is 2 blocks from the high school. It was not uncommon for me to see ICE driving around the high school and Black explorers just driving around the high school. I mean, just pure intimidation.
Yeah.
It was not uncommon to see that. And so we are not seeing that level of activity. We do know that ICE is still present, but we aren't seeing as many arrests. Um, and so yes, they're still present. We aren't seeing as many arrests. They kind of went initially from being in full-on tactical gear, and then they changed to being a little bit more plain clothes. And then when they stopped, quote unquote, supposedly arresting so many people, then what they started to do was they would intimidate constitutional observers or other people that they knew were involved in the resistance, and they would park outside their homes and do things like that. So I would say that is still an ICE presence, but certainly not to the same level that there was before. Catherine, if I am incorrect or if you would like to add anything, please feel free. My friend
Nope.
Catherine Haslag is on this Zoom as well, and she might know a few things that I do not.
You nailed it. There was also a group of us that are working, um, to provide pantry opportunities for people here in the state or the area, I should say. Um, we were doing, and I saw a question in the chat about people volunteering to bring groceries. There was a movement of that, that is shifting to providing other pantry services now that people aren't as afraid to leave their homes. But yeah, there's still a huge need. I also teach at the community college, and we had a bunch of students who withdrew because they could not take face-to-face classes. They were afraid to come to campus. We were able to work with some and help them do classes online, but it was absolutely crippling to many families.
Thank you, Catherine. And I think Catherine speaking about some of the educational impacts, and um, there are on the students who are not able to participate, that obviously hurts their long-term success, but there are also significant impacts to the individual educational institutions who lose funding because they lose students. So the ripple effects of something like this are huge.
One thing that came to mind for me as I was thinking about the parallel scripture that goes with the one from Matthew, where in one of the other things where Jesus is talking about the end times, and the goat people say, you know, didn't we prophesy in your name? Didn't we cast out demons in your name? Didn't we do all this grandiose stuff?
Yeah.
And Jesus says, I never knew you. And it made me think about kind of the ironic thing in that with all the things that the current administration has been doing with ICE and all the upheaval and violence and intimidation, when you look at the numbers of actual criminals that are here illegally that are deported, their numbers are actually far less than the previous administrations. And so you have to wonder, is that just incompetence, or is it because the intent is really the intimidation and the chaos and the violence? And I think that parallels that scripture, because those people who thought they were doing all these great things, but they were completely missing the point. So I just kind of wonder how much is it that the administration is completely missing the point and that they're just incompetent in what they're doing, or how much of it is that really they don't really care about the immigration enforcement, that they're just trying to be this kind of authoritarian and intimidating presence. I don't know if you guys have any insight about that from your experience that you've been through there.
So I think this would be my unofficial opinion. I think that my assessment, Brian, is that the answer to that question is all of the above. Incompetent. They were incompetent. Intimidation and chaos. Yeah, Catherine is in agreement with me. Intimidation and chaos was also part of their objective. But incompetent people, don't hire competent people, and they don't have competent strategies. And so you have incompetent people at the top, the people that have been hired and are are being pushed out, and the mission that's being pushed out is incompetent and unethical. So, yes, I would say incompetent, and that the goal is chaos and disruption.
Sorry
And
that
yes,
you-
Cheryl, I think we all agree with masks that it's they absolutely should not be able to wear masks.
Yeah.
This is Casey. I want to share a personal story that has affected us. We weren't, arrested, but just to make a trip last November, kind of during the height of Chicago. And a friend that we knew was telling us, because we were going to make a trip, we're going to Chicago, you have to be very, very alert to that. So this is our experience to go to watch my son cross a national cross country meet in north of Chicago, near Milwaukee area. So we left here, flew into Grand Rapids, Michigan. But before we left, I carry my passport with me all the time. I carry my license with the star on it, I carry my tribal ID, and I carry my veteran's ID all with me. And also for this particular trip, Laura downloaded and we carried all of our birth certificates. And we landed in Grand Rapids and we rented a car and we asked that we get a car with a very different license plate. So we're going to drive to Chicago. So having a license plate that's not New Mexico.
Yeah.
Yes. And then we drive through and making the point that we go to the bathroom before we go through town, and that we get to the other side of town and before we eat or do anything, and not to making a point to stop anywhere in Chicago at all. Just stay on the highway and then do the same thing on the way home. But it was me, my daughter, my wife, and my son was already there. So that was our experience, just leaving to go to watch a cross-country race. And I was thinking just now, what if ICE walked in our room right here just now? What would it be? I would be pretty well prepared. And I also have on speed dial is my tribal enrollment office. So how many of you have to be that prepared to make a trip?
Yeah.
Yeah, just that's our story. And then I've made several trips thereafter, and it's always the same. I carry those documents with me, and we have our children as well because they're spread all over the country. We always ask them to be very careful as well. So that's just my personal story, even being down here in New Mexico, travel. Share that with you, how it affects even me, just to be all on high alert and stressed just to make a trip. Yeah.
So our nephew, who was adopted from Colombia, who does not necessarily pass as white, basically spent December, January, February inside his home. And worked from home because it was too dangerous for him to leave his house. It's just, it's a moral abomination. Kimberly, go ahead.
You're muted still, Kimberly.
I was listening to a portion of your story, and it just reminds me of the water protectors at Standing Rock. And I was there for a week, well, 3 days really, because it took me 2 days to get in and out. And all of the things that I saw there, I was documenting to take back to my class. I was teaching a classroom of undergrads. And I remember taking pictures of like armored vehicles.
Mhm.
There were the masks. There was the really unnecessary militarized force
Yep.
against unarmed people. And all of those things, violation of all religious freedoms, human rights, things like that were going on. And I remember telling my class and showing them some of the photos I took and saying, if it can happen there,
Mhm.
it can happen here.
Mhm.
And I want you to pay attention to that.
Mhm.
And so when all of these things started happening with ICE, I'm like, yeah, that's the exact same kind of tactics
Mhm.
that were happening at Standing Rock. And I, for one, believe that I'm going to say it like Standing Rock was an experiment for the military presence that was there and all the propaganda that was going around against the Native people in the
Mhm.
local neighborhoods. It was practice to see, one, how much people would tolerate,
Mhm.
and two, if they would retaliate in any way, shape, or form, and how long it would take to get things normalized, things like to get their presence normalized and
Mhm.
in a way where people depended or relied on the military forces, militarized forces, to be there for a false sense of security that there would be no violence going on.
Mhm.
So, really, a bunch of head games and all of that in concert with disruption of internet circuits and things like that. Like I took my computer with me because it was around midterms time and I was going to do some grading on my few hours here and there. And I was never able to use my laptop again
Mhm.
because everything was erased from it. And so that's what it makes me think of.
Mhm.
And you said something about history repeating itself. You used a quote.
Yep.
And, and it's not just, I really feel like it's not just going to stop here. It's going to continue to escalate in different pockets in different ways. I don't
Yes.
want to sound like I'm warning people or anything like that. It's just that's how these things go. They start somewhere, they go somewhere else, they go somewhere else, they go somewhere else. And it never really becomes more gentle or
No.
better.
Right.
So, but the thing about, you mentioned the word chaos. Chaos
Mhm.
can work in two ways. It can scatter people and numb and paralyze them with fear, or it can bring them together.
Mhm.
And that's where work should be done.
Mhm.
That's going to be the most helpful. Are we going to let
Mhm.
this tear us apart in fear, or are we going to keep our heads and rely on the things that we know are true? When I saw the women, the grandmas and the women standing in front of like the bulldozer that was going to dig up the land at Standing Rock, that's what you do in the face of chaos.
Mhm.
What you can do in the face of chaos.
Mhm.
It's not easy.
I think we saw in Minnesota that people very clearly um, chose community over chaos. And as time, that desire for community, that recognition, um, even frankly, even my most conservative members at my church, and I do have, a church with very conservative Republicans. And, I have said to them, I understand that you may not agree with people being here without proper immigration status, but their children should not go hungry because it is not their children's fault that they're here, and their children should feel free to go to school. And decent human beings cannot argue with that. And they could not argue with me on that. And I think what we saw, the tactics we saw were so horrific, that people were just like, we're not going to take this. And, by the way, we're crazy Minnesotans. Um, we get up and go outside for a walk when it's -20. Um, so we're not going to take that. And so there were some, yes, and yes, Cheryl, they did grab kids coming from school. Yeah. Uh, and so Minnesotans did a variety of things to deal with ice in a creative ways, um, which included to pour water on our own sidewalks, because we knew that in many cases, ice agents that had come in from around the country would not know how to walk on icy sidewalks. We knew that they would try to go up a person's sidewalks. So, Minnesotans are, we're a hardy bunch. And so we did creative things like that to try to deal with that issue. And yes, Cheryl, people were infuriated by taking kids as they walked out the door from school, or using children as bait. And that's one of the things when they arrested the 5-year-old Liam and deported him to Texas, even though his mom was right in the house. They got all the soccer moms in Minneapolis really mad. And when you get the suburban soccer moms mad because the kid you just picked up looks just like the kid their 5-year-old kid plays soccer with, that's game over. And that was one of the biggest mistakes that they made, was arresting little 5-year-old Liam, and then, killing the 2 American citizens sure didn't help their case either. But you go after 5-year-old kids that look like the kid that your son or daughter plays soccer with, that's game over. I walked with a group of students in February that did a walkout from the schools here in town. And I'll be honest, I'm kind of a dork. I'm not much of a walkout participant because I'm just kind of a dork. But given this situation, the students wanted to do a walkout. They were protesting ICE in our community because ICE had taken a student. And so I wanted to walk with them. So I put my clergy collar on and I walked with the kids because I was trying to advocate for their safety. I don't know how many hundreds, it was at least 400 students walked out, and I walked with them for a good portion of the way. But even with the students doing a walkout, there was a man, a local known white supremacist, who tried to drive his truck right into this group of students doing a walkout, right? And so, mom and grandma power, yeah, that's worth it. I saw all of those kids in, Minnesota winter carrying signs and walking. And I just thought, I'd die for these kids. They're our future, and they have a right to be here. Just because of the color of their skin doesn't matter. They have a right to be here just like I do. And, the white supremacists don't like it when people aren't afraid. And so not being afraid is the name of the game.
Oh, go ahead, Helen.
Okay, do I need to speak in the mic or?
You're fine where you're at.
We can hear you.
Okay. When Twyla read the gospel reading, 2 things I thought were irony and contrast. And when I look at this situation, I think, again, irony and contrast. I think during the pandemic, a lot of these people would not wear a mask for anything, and now they will wear a mask to conceal their identity. They wouldn't do it to save a life, but they'll do it to save their hide.
Their own.
Also, the sheep and the goats is so clear. It shows, too, that it's not always who we expect to be on the side of good or evil,
Yeah.
but it's the choices we make in our everyday lives. And I've been very moved to see a lot of both Indigenous people and the African American community really standing up for immigrants. And I think if anyone has a right to oppose immigration, it's the Native peoples.
Sure.
But they're not the ones making all the trouble. They're not the ones committing the violence. I remember one elder was saying to an immigrant, "You're home, brother. You know, you have, what, like 60, 70% Native blood?"
Yeah.
And we didn't have these strict boundaries. We were free to come and go as we wanted. And so I've just been very moved and very disgusted as I see some people seem to be sinking lower and lower every week, but then are there other people who are rising higher and higher and making incredible sacrifices. So it gives me hope, but
Yes.
Sometimes I think, is that part of the polarization that, I want people to get higher and higher. I want the people on the low level to get higher and higher too. I don't want the people on the top to have to come down so that we're more alike. That seems counterproductive. But yeah, I think I really appreciate your teaching tonight.
I
thank you.
appreciate, thank you for what you said, because I had made a note to say this, but I didn't. I had forgotten to. So I was at a clergy protest at the Whipple building. Yes, flipping tables. I was at a clergy protest in the Whipple building in November before the ICE Operation Metro Surge thing started in Minnesota. And so here we are, clergy from all sorts of different faiths, which was wonderful. And we were all in our, we're wearing our collars or robes or whatever. And we were advocating for immigrants, right? And I was amazed that there were Indigenous people that were there that came with us, that came to protest in support of us. And here are these Indigenous people whose land we have taken from them. And in the case of the Dakota, it's their sacred land that we have taken from them. And they have joined us in protesting what the government is doing. And I'll tell you, there were sniper rifles trained on us from the top of the Bishop Whipple building. I mean, we're wearing our clergy collars and they're prepared to take us out. I'm not sure what they thought we were going to do. Praying is apparently scary. I don't know. But I was just amazed at the absolute, I don't know that humility is the right word, but I was just the terrific irony that there were Indigenous persons that walked with us on this land that was their sacred land, that stood up for immigrants. That irony was not lost on me, and I felt an incredible generosity in their spirit. Maybe is the best way to put it. What incredibly generous spirits they had. And then you talked about people going up and some people going down, and I think what's really critical at this juncture is that we just continue to engage in ways that continue to lift people further and further and further up, right? We cannot be participating in the mudslinging. We cannot do anything that incites violence or anything like that. If we can do things that continue to appeal to the better part of people and just continue to raise the bar, I mean, it's, like let your love shine brighter, right? That's would be the total, little emoji thing. But, that is what we need to do at this juncture.
Amen,
And
Pastor Vickie, and I want to say thank you so much. I appreciate you bringing this together, and I honor you and Sister Catherine and all the ones there who continue to stand up for your brother and your sister, each of us all together. I wanted to say that I think it was a actual prophetic thing that's happening, because this is things that's always happened to people of color and indigenous people. It's just that now I perceive that creator, that that there's I don't want to mention names. I can only go so far because I get really
yeah,
stirred up. But a big mirror has been set up for this
yes,
nation.
yes.
It's going to be judged. To say, just like you said, there'll be some, when did we do this? When did we not do this? Well, if you didn't know before, because we weren't taught in school, or because you didn't know
Yes.
somebody, or you didn't live by somebody, nobody, when Creator Jesus returns to however he comes, and as it's all coming together, for the new kingdom to come together as it was originally intended, with all nations and tribes and tongues. No one will have an excuse. Even
Yeah.
the whole world. It amazes me how you think before the internet, still there were pockets, or depending on where you were. That's how the internet can be so evil, but it also can be so good, because
Mhm.
we are exposed now. We see almost no one will have an excuse to say, I just didn't know.
Mhm.
I didn't know. I thought I was doing this because, well, unless you literally, like they say, been living under a rock. These are the times. This is the prophetic time in the whole universe and creation where, that mirror is up, So here it is, and here we are. And
Yeah.
Sister Kimberly, as you were saying, you hope that people continue to go up higher. It occurred to me how ironic it was that the forming of this nation was about all nations and tribes and tongues. Come to me, send me, you're hungry, you're thirsty. But when this occupation happened in Minneapolis, and the way the people responded, that actually was a true example of maybe what the ideal, honest hearted ones that truly came and wanted to see that. We actually just saw a true nation, a melting pot of
Mhm.
people choosing to go up higher. And
Mhm.
and my one thing I've always appreciated about Jesus kept saying to overcome the evil with good. Like you were talking about, we can't meet violence with violence. This is where, and it's hard for a lot of us, because like I'm a warrior. I'm a veteran, and you don't have to be a veteran to be a warrior. Just some of us we're anointed with that spirit of protection. It's like, you can do anything to me, you could whatever. And literally Creator has blessed me through walking through and being ugly enough myself to be able to have grace and forgive anyone of everything. But if I see you hurting someone else, I'm liable to just, that's when the bear spirit comes out, and I can't see where I'm going. I just know I'm going to stop it. And there's so many of us with those spirit of love and that's love. That's that love. No, wanting to put just protect others like your children, that. But anyways, I'm just rambling on now. But it struck me that to be hopeful, because the whole time what has kept me going, initially it was just anyways, but what has kept me positive is I'm seeing in my mind, in the spirit, look, I want to encourage everybody. Remember, ask Creator to help you see in the spirit that what you're seeing is a manifestation of all the warfare, that's spiritual warfare that's going on. And when Jesus said we overcome the evil with good, in spiritual warfare, in my perception, it's either, when we respond in turn with that hate and that violent spirit, we feed that spirit. We feed those evil snake
Mhm.
or messengers. But when we try to overcome it, and that may mean us having to no greater love as one half of their self than they would lay down their life for another. It may come to that one day. It certainly came to Europe during the
Mhm.
world wars.
Mhm.
We've just really been getting our first taste of this now.
Mhm.
But I'm hopeful and grateful because I know that in the midst of all the darkness and that's happening, it's had to come forth. It's working out this working at reaping, sowing and reaping. We've been in the threshing floor and it's bloody, and almost everybody's got cuts on them and just upset and stirred. As it said, Frederick Douglass said that a sword needed to come, a fire into this country. Well, it has. So I think we're seeing prophetically so many wonderful things happening. So just want to encourage everybody that's with us or hears this later to stay positive and keep looking up, because you can overcome the evil with good. You can feed your brother and sister and protect those ones. You can do that. Creator can help you do that. But
Mhm.
thank you. Thank you so much.
Humble thanks, Casey, for asking.
Yeah, so I want to let everybody know, since we had that experience back in November when I talked with Vickie, and she mentioned that, I said, yes, we gotta talk about this. Yeah, we gotta bring it up. And, in Good Medicine Way is a strong enough place that we can voice this and share this. And I know when time came there, I put out alerts to family members with information on how to get a hold of your government and how to get a hold of your tribal enrollment, make sure that something happens that we're there. And our lawyers that we have with the tribe are right there as well, make that all happen. And I thought it was a topic that needed to be explored a little bit. Vickie, you did a amazing job. You did a really good job. I really appreciate you, and bless your ministry. Keep it up. Thank you for being our.
Bless your ministry. Bless Good Medicine Way. Thank you.
And Brother
Yeah.
Casey, can I just thank you for being such a father, such a wonderful leader, pastor, brother, uncle, however one's come here, for being that, example of Jesus in in the things that you are allowing us to discuss, and the freedom that you give ones to discuss. But just so grateful for you, for how you love your Good Medicine Way family, that you would let this come. This needed to come. This is good. This is good. This is good.
Yeah.
Thank you, Auntie.
I really want to underscore the importance of the overcoming evil with good, and how vital it was that the resistance in Minneapolis adhered to nonviolence in the face of a lot of intimidation. You can definitely make the case that part of the motivation of the type of response that ICE brought was to incite a violent reaction, because that would provide a pretext then for the government to become more authoritarian and more heavy-handed in what it did. So, but when the resistance, not only adhered to nonviolence, but then you also had, elements of it that just got into the creative bizarre to really just show the ridiculousness of the authoritarian actions, and that really just confounded the people who wanted to oppress. They didn't know what to do with it, and that is really the heaping of coals upon the people's head. It's that their intent on being violent to incite violence to to give them an excuse to be more violent. When you don't give them that violence has nowhere to go, and it
Yeah.
just burns them up from the inside. And it also reminded me of, we touched on it a little bit, and I know like Helen and I talked about this earlier with Ken too, is that, in some ways, some in the media have been saying like, oh, this is unprecedented and whatever. And, you talk to, like the people in the Native communities was like, hey, we've been doing this for centuries. We can help you
Yep.
out here. And you talk to anybody who's from a disenfranchised community, people of color, they're like, no, this is like our daily reality. This is how
Yep.
the authorities, always act to us. But I think the one thing that is a little bit different is just the blatant aspect of it and the total disregard to try to make it look nice on the surface. Like that's like it's just out on the table now. And I think for people who've been raised in the status quo and grown up with this idea of American exceptionalism, like to come face to face with the reality that like we've never been that's really like a mind breaker. Like
Yeah.
I'm really surprised that there haven't been a lot more like, nervous breakdowns among people in the status quo who have decent hearts, whose like whole, paradigm has just been shown to be like built on fallacy. And so I don't know if you have like, I know that you have a congregation that comes from very, diverse backgrounds and mixed views. I just wonder, like, have you had any experience on trying to, walk with people through that experience of kind of shifting their whole paradigm?
So we have a Tuesday morning group where I've been able to kind of more carefully kind of engage, in that dialogue about, this false idea of American exceptionalism, and certainly um, any sort of, any sort of, I don't know, fallacy that we were once a great power in this world and had huge blocks of allies and were deeply trusted. I mean, that's gone. Um, but it was really all built on a fallacy. And so with our Tuesday morning group, I've got more space to talk about that because we can have dialogue, right? Um, on Sunday morning, I'm a little bit more limited because I'm not able to engage them in quite the way that I would like to. Um, but I mean, what I am doing is I am certainly opposing Christian nationalism from the pulpit. I am encouraging them to think of themselves as citizens of the kingdom of God first, and not citizens of the United States of America. I have certainly, when I one time preached about how, like whatever there's any number of gospel lessons that talk about how um, the gospel of Jesus Christ is for all nations, right? And how, there is not one chosen nation, and it most certainly is not the United States. And there were a few people in the congregation who I thought they were going to fall over and have a heart attack, I mean, because as the pastor, like you see their reaction. Um, and then in my Christmas sermons, where, that's your biggest, when you have the most folks there, I explicitly stated from Leviticus, where you are called to welcome the stranger, you are called to, I mean, there's a very clear call in Leviticus that is like you have to welcome the immigrant. You should feed that person, you should clothe them, and you should treat them as if, yes, on Christmas, both services. Um, and I have explicitly addressed those, um, as much as I felt like in my general preaching. Um, in the Tuesday morning group, it's much easier to kind of tease where people are at, right? So that I know how to address their objections. Now, I would say, Brian, if I were in Minneapolis, St. Paul, I would be preaching in an entirely different context. Um, I would be much more open about challenging some of the things. Um, but because I'm in a rural area, that is purple, I do work very hard to make sure that whatever I am saying that might be perceived as controversial is tied back to scripture, and I pay special attention to the fact that I want it tied to Jesus' words.
Yeah.
I'm very intentional about that. So we're doing in the Tuesday morning group, we're doing this study that was written by the United Methodist Church Council of Bishops called Building Beloved Community. And it's all about living into beloved community in a time of tyranny. And the Tuesday morning group is a highly, highly relational group. So they're not super excited about talking about tyranny and authoritarianism. So I'm stretching them, but um, it's what must be done at this moment in time.
That's right, sister. It's just like you would be doing them no service by allowing them to continue to dine on milk toast, right? But you're supposed to be helping them grow all of us to be meat
Exactly.
eaters of the word.
Exactly. Hmm. Yeah. And I don't want to talk about it. I mean, people are like, well, you just like to be political. Well, actually, no, I really don't prefer to be political. I would prefer to preach, um, Jesus loves you 52 weeks out of the year, um, every single Sunday. Um, that's what I would love to do. Um, but I don't feel that I have the luxury of doing that right now. Because basically up until Monday, Thursday, clergy was not allowed inside the Whipple building to pray with people who were held in detention in that building. So you have limited my freedom of speech. You have limited my ability to practice religion. Um, I have a big issue with that.
Sister, I honor you. You're a warrior in the truest sense. Oh,
Well, very humble. We're very, very tired here. I would tell you that. We are tired. Our souls are weary. We're afraid. We hope that people that particularly are underrepresented communities, um, we hope that we can support and sustain them. We hope our economy heals. I hope that we rebuild better. Brian, did that appropriately address your question? I mean, I think what I'd like to say is as a child who was born in 1970, I'd like to be right out in front of Washington, D.C., burning all of my bras right now, right? Um, and I haven't done that, but I have tried to do the most impactful thing that I could do with the power and the voice that I have in the context that I have. Does that make sense, Brian?
Yeah, I think it does. No, I mean, because it's like I totally identify, because I'm, a Gen Xer as well, and
Yeah.
and came up through like the punk rock movement in a lot of ways. So like, yeah, there's definitely that side of where you just want to like, yeah, but
Rage against the machine.
yeah,
hey, ha, ho.
but but yeah, I love there's a indigenous version of it where they have Sage Against the Machine, which I think like which is really like
Oh,
that is like the proper, Christian response. Like, okay, yeah, let's
Love it.
overcome evil with good. Let's go to
Love it.
prayer. Let's go to prayer instead of violence.
Yes.
And but but yeah, no, because I mean for me, because like a lot of my relatives are definitely those people who come from, kind of conservative status quo
Hmm.
upbringings who were really steeped in this whole, idea of the American exceptionalism idea, and and the concern for me is when, because they're difficult. It's a difficult path to walk with those people because there's so much like self-deception that they've had to put themselves through in order to maintain that
Yes.
fantasy of exceptionalism.
Yes.
So just keep coming back with, okay, here's the truth will set you free. Can you face this truth, and trying to walk each step. And a lot of times it's just overwhelming for them, and they can't. It becomes too difficult. And so it's a long path. But then when you think of all the disenfranchised people that I've walked alongside and the struggles I've gone through with them, like, to have to kind of like really baby step with these people who've had every advantage and because they can't emotionally deal with it, like that, for me, that's where Creator really has to grow my heart, because, I just want to be like, come on, like, this shouldn't be so difficult for you. So I'm often like looking for, people's experience, like how do you kind of get through people and keep them moving in the right direction, without just becoming like completely infuriated, like in the process. But I definitely appreciate you sharing your experience and perspective on it. Yeah.
I've been very, very diligent about tying it into scripture and specifically Jesus' words. Yeah.
I think we're getting to the point there. We don't want to start losing people from the East Coast. We always do that, but like everybody's been hanging in there pretty much. Well, I appreciate everybody that came on. I want to let you know that we're a Jesus group here. You are loved here, and we love you. And just you've got a safe place to come and share. Other places you can't share, like we just did tonight. Be proud. Wear your skin color proud. Now, it's the way you got to do it. I know I've grown up that way, exceptionalism, and it's hard to live that way. Thank you so much, everyone. Love you all. We're going to go into our closing song, and if anyone feel they would like to send us off, closing words. Put your hand up.
Yeah, or throw it in the chat, or just jump out when we're done. We're done singing the song.
Aim song.
Yeah, really. That's what we ought to be doing. Though on that, like the melody to this song actually comes from a song that I first heard at the Standing Rock protests. So that's where the vocables and the melody of the song actually come from a song that was sung out at the Standing Rock protests. Way
I will jump
May I
in.
offer the prayer?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Lord of all of us, bless all the people that care enough to put their own lives at risk to care for others. We hold up the people in Minnesota, in Chicago, in Los Angeles, the people in El Paso that are protesting at the jails, all of these people that are trying so much to make sure that the least of these are safe and secure. Bless them for their efforts, keep them safe. And mercy on all of those that are being imprisoned. They are our backbone. Just generations ago, we have all come from different places, and we have all traveled your roads, directing us to where we call home. We are all travelers, all of us, and we want to travel closer to you. Be with us in our walk. Amen.
Thank you, Sarah, very much. Well, everyone, have a wonderful rest of your week, and keep us in prayer. And also remember, look at the Wachoni Family Camp website and think about praying about coming there. This would be a time when virtual people, Good Medicine Way, can gather. So we can do that. Yeah. Those people here and those virtual people out there who just, I know you guys are part of us, and so much so. Yeah. You're loved, and I know you love us, and just being together, just that connection part just really is needed. Yeah. Virtual is fine, but it just doesn't do adequate. So love you guys. Have a good week and a good night. Take care now. Oh, we got. Oh, Twyla, bring your card up. I got that page. I got that page pulled up.